If a tree falls in the woods and no one's around, does it make a sound?
Absolutely.
But Bart, how can sound exist if there's no one there to hear it?
Ooh.
What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto, where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto, where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto, like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1717 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Yes, we are open. An award-winning podcast from Monaris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego. Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. Get your butts to Christie Pitts this summer for the best baseball in the city outside the dome. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Building Toronto Skyline, a podcast and book from Nick Iones, sponsored by Fusion Corporate Construction Management, Inc. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making their Toronto Mic debut, it's Toronto Tree. And speaking on behalf of Toronto Tree, because trees can't talk, it's Professor Elwood Pricklethorn. Welcome, Professor.
Hey, great to be here, Mike. I speak for the trees.
You are going to be the proxy, if you will. You're going to speak on behalf of Toronto Tree, but can we just get to know you a little better? Who exactly is Professor Elwood Pricklethorn?
Professor Elwood Pricklethorn brings fun to trees. He is an educator that does tree presentations for children of all ages, Mike.
You were literally, Professor, you were speaking to like kindergarten age kids at a school in Toronto earlier today.
Correct. Yep, up in Bayview Avenue. And yeah, it was kindergarten and grades 1 and 2. Very hot morning, but it was really cool because trees were involved.
Well, so just to set the table for the listenership, we're going to talk about Toronto Tree, and I'm going to explain what's Toronto Tree for those who don't know. And if you don't know, you don't know, but you're going to know in a minute. And we're going to talk about what, you're going to educate us, like the importance of urban trees. I want to tell you, Professor Elwood Pricklethorn, that the last time I had this same sensation I have now, where I'm not sure where the professor ends and Warren begins, is when I had Ed the Sock on the program.
Right. I can see that. Yeah.
So Ed was on, and I wanted to talk to Ed, but I realized there are questions I have that need to be answered by Steve Kersner. And we did this whole theatrical thing where Ed went to move his car, I think, or maybe it was the other way around, and then we had them both on. So I'm going to speak to you as Professor Elwood Pricklethorn, but you have a road manager who might chime in now and then, and your road manager is Warren
Hosselton. Yes. Yep.
Hosselton. So there's a Warren Hosselton and there's a Professor Elwood Pricklethorn, and never the two shall meet in Pokeroo style.
Correct. There's some cross-pollination, cross-grains, but we're never seen in the same room, Mike.
Okay. I have notes because I'm going to just to build you up, Professor, and then we're going to dive into the Toronto Tree story, and then we're going to talk about, the importance of trees and stuff like that. You graduated from Humber College Horticulture and Arboriculture. You had a diploma. This is in the late 70s, early 80s. Right. Like, you are a certified arborist.
Absolutely. I'm certified through the International Society of Arboriculture, which is a worldwide organization that preaches best practices, professionalism in the tree world, arboriculture.
No laughing matter, Professor, because in 2013, you were the recipient of the International Society of Arboriculture's Ontario Chapter's Maple Leaf Award. Right. This is a prestigious award.
Sure is. No, it's...
it is. Good. I wasn't sure, but it is. Okay, good.
Yeah, with volunteerism, and working with people and extolling about trees.
Love it. Okay. And you were the Tree Fund Volunteer of the Year. You won that award in 2014.
Right. Yeah. I just kept on doing what I'm doing with trees. It's kind of self-serving because I really enjoy doing it, Mike.
Well, it's going to be all about trees on this episode. This is a great episode, and it's Toronto Tree and then Toronto Trees, where maybe the T is not capitalized. Okay, it's not a proper name.
I have a feeling it's going to be a tremendous presentation here.
Where's
today.
that sign? Did you bring it in, or was it just for the photo?
I can bring it in later, but yeah.
It's okay. You don't need to bring it in. But the professor had this great sign, a tremendous sign. You mentioned before I pressed record that you listened to the most recent episode of Toronto Mic'd, and there was some talk from Josh Matlow,
correct,
a new FOTM, about a gondola that would get you to the island. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, Mike, I worked on the island for almost 25 years. The professor also has a secret lab there. I'm not going to divulge too much about that. With tree research.
Is it where the lighthouse is? I want to know. What's going on.
Yeah, right in there. Yeah, involving tree research. But no, the gondola idea, the cable car, would be amazing. I think because not only would it be practical for like a commute for island residents, but it'd also be like a great tourism attraction as well. My wife and I were recently in Mexico City in the winter, and there was a fairly new cable car gondola system there. And we were on it probably for about 7 kilometers, went to the furthest point, came in, and people use that to commute. And as he said, you don't need a big footprint. You don't need to disrupt or dig, tunnels or, cut down a bunch of woodlots to make it happen.
Hearing you speak to the gondola idea that Josh is proposing, I'm now in. I want to be officially on the record. I'm in favor of the gondola. I would love that method of transportation to get to the island.
Pretty straightforward. I'd started out somewhere right near Sugar Beach. Then I'd go to the Portlands, along the Portlands.
Yeah.
One stop at Ward's Island, all the way down to center with a stop there, then back you come. Kind of like an L shape or a U shape that brings you back down to Sugar Beach.
By the way, I've been told by the official Toronto historian, Jay Ho, who's on the live stream, that I've already mispronounced your name, and my humble apologies to you, Professor Pricklethorn. I believe I referred to you erroneously as a Pickleworth or Prickleworth or something like that. It's Pricklethorn.
Yeah, Pricklethorn.
It's important we get that right, Professor Elwood Pricklethorn here. And again, you mentioned you worked on the island for a good long time. Let's not be humble here before we dive into the Toronto Tree story. You were the City of Toronto Park Supervisor for the Toronto Island.
I was blessed. It was just the perfect job for me. I was born and raised in a small town, Cobourg, Ontario, about an hour and a half east of here on the shores of Lake Ontario.
Sure.
Ended up on the island during amalgamation and, worked there with, all sorts of different agencies and the city staff and the community, and we got some stuff done.
Well, here's a couple of connections to the island. First of all, I got a buddy who was like the head firefighter on the island until they forced him to retire at the age of whatever they forced you to retire, 60, 65 or something like that. And my daughter, I just want to shout out my daughter, who did work at the camp, the YMCA Toronto Island camp for years.
Unbelievable, because I've been at that camp. Professor Pricklethorn has been at that camp for the last 3 years.
So I'm trying to think, it was probably a couple of years since she did work there. But literally, like, she's going today. She's coming from Montreal to Toronto because I'm going to be hanging with her at TMLX 19, which is taking place Thursday. Professor, are you able to be at Great Lakes Brewery? That's 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard in South Etobicoke from 6 to 9 p.m. on Thursday. Are you available?
I believe I am.
Okay. Yes. Will you be in full Professor guise? Like, will you have on the...
If security allows me in. Yeah, it can be pretty intimidating, Mike.
Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that your first beer from Great Lakes is on the house.
Wow. Nice.
And that goes for all listeners as well. But I am going to send you home, Professor, with some fresh craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery.
Hydration is critical on a day like this.
That's right. Well, we'll get to that too. I have 3 questions about that. But I want to let people know that it is happening this Thursday. Snow is confirmed. A lot of people were saying, will Snow be there? Snow is confirmed. He's excited about it. And he's going to be telling some stories. You got to be there, man, for the Snow orbit there. But Palma Pasta will be there to feed everybody. So come hungry. Professor, I'm going to send you home with a large lasagna that's in my freezer right now.
Amazing. I
So
probably
that's
don't
what you're here for, right,
eat it,
Professor?
but yes, absolutely. I'm here for the lasagna.
Did you say you don't eat it?
No, I probably don't need it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I thought you said I don't eat it.
No,
and I'm
that's
like,
the
well, I'm
problem.
not giving it to you then.
that's the problem.
Well, you know what? There's worse things, okay?
Comfort food.
Okay, so when I got a note from you,
Mm-hmm.
of course, you're a certified arborist, so you're going to speak about the specific Toronto tree as soon as I explain where that name came from and a little info about Toronto tree. But you also mentioned you were a longtime Toronto Mike fan. When did you discover this podcast, Professor?
Probably a couple of years ago, Mike. And it's a funny thing. I have to admit, like when I see your roster of the speakers on the list,
Yeah.
I tend to generally tune in to the names that I know.
Mm-hmm.
But I probably should have a wider scope and tune into everybody, because same as my name pops up there, I'm kind of under the radar, and somebody like me is going to say, hey, I'm not going to tune into this.
Well, let's put it this way. I'm not going to say Warren Hazelton.
Right.
This isn't Warren Hazelton. I'll be putting Professor Elwood Pricklethorn.
That pops.
I
That
feel like
pops.
people need to
Yeah.
know. But I will say, I've heard from listeners who did what you do, which is cherry pick the
Yes.
names they know.
Yep.
But then tried episodes of people they didn't know and told me, like, they made the time to tell me they learned about new people and found it just as interesting. Like, I think that
Awakening.
is a mistake. Like, I think you will learn. I try to make every guest interesting. I think you should start listening to episodes,
I'm
even if
going
you've
to
never
do
heard the
that.
name.
I'm going to do that.
Like, for example, do you know the name Ashley McIsaac?
Yes, a musician.
Okay, so he was on last week, just before Josh Matlow, and he's a fiddler.
Yes.
And that episode is absolute bananas. Professor, you'll love it.
East Coaster, right?
Yep, he's in Cape Breton.
Yeah, I'm going to scroll back.
Okay. And I'm going to stop reading your bio because it would take all hour because you're the on the Ontario chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture's honorary lifetime membership award. You're Toronto Island Community Tree Trust chapter board member. You mentioned your work with the YMCA summer camp that my daughter worked at. I'll be asking her about you tomorrow. You're an all-around tremendous guy who cares about trees, and you want others to understand them and care about them too.
Right. Yeah, they're just not like a static green appliance in front of your house or in your backyard. They really contribute to a healthier community, and I mean that like physically and mentally. They're infrastructure. They're like a soft infrastructure that really improve our communities.
So we're going to open with Toronto tree, a very specific tree that we will be taking a photo in front of, and then we'll talk about urban trees in general and all the benefits. So listeners, keen listeners know that the name Toronto tree was coined by Dave Thomas from SCTV fame. I didn't have a name for this tree. This is the tree in front of my house, but at some point in, I don't know, the early 100s episodes of, we're at 17 something now, but the early hundreds, I realized I would take a selfie with a guest in front of my tree in the front on the boulevard. And it became one of those things that became a rule. Like, every guest who visits is going to take this photo with me. So now there's I don't know what there is now, over 1,500 such photos or something. But there was no name. And then Dave Thomas would see all these photos. I know this guy. These are all people he called it Toronto Tree because I am Toronto Mike. So Toronto Tree named by Dave Thomas. A few facts about Toronto Tree, and then you're going to tell us more about Toronto Tree.
Right.
One is that fruit used to fall from this tree. It was actually a big mess. You'll speak to what the fruit was, but it stopped falling at some point. So at some point over the last several years, the fruit stopped growing and falling. I no longer have I used to have a shovel, and it was a major cleanup to pick up all this fruit off the sidewalk because people would slip on it or whatever. The fruit stopped falling, so that was concerning to me. But then more concerning to me, Professor, is that in August, I think it was about August, but maybe it was even late July, Toronto Tree would start, the brown leaves would start to fall in the middle of summer, okay? And I would literally have to rake up my leaves in early August. Now, I'm not an arborist, but this was concerning to me too.
Yes.
It's why and you're going to speak to everything in a moment. Why the heck am I picking up my leaves? That's Dave Thomas right now. He wants to make sure we gave him credit for, here we got the professor. He's getting a call.
Yes, yeah, he got it.
You got it. Okay. Dave Thomas says thank you for the credit for that name because I was going to steal credit. Okay. So fruit stopped falling. Brown leaves now fall in like August, maybe July even. And the last point is that it still does its bloom for 1 week a year. That's maybe a little less than about 5 days a year. This tree is gorgeous, like a full bloom, big color. It is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen for like 5 days a year. And it's still doing that. So I just want to shout out Toronto Tree that it hasn't given up that ghost yet. Now, we pass the mic to you, Professor Elwood Pricklethorn. Tell me everything I need to know about Toronto Tree.
Mike, it is a crabapple tree.
That's the fruit, crabapple.
Yep, crabapple. Generally, this is like a WTF scenario. Why trees fail.
Okay.
They typically live 50 to 60 years. So when you think of it, the best before date is behind us now, right? It's probably in its 40th, 50th year.
It's elderly.
Yes, it's elderly. And it's losing some of its vigor.
Mm-hmm.
And trees generally fail when they start losing resources, whether that be water. They need three things to live: water, nutrients, CO2, and sunlight. It's got the sunlight. It's got carbon dioxide. But the thing is, with water and nutrients, it could be a little pinched on that given its age as well. And sometimes, like city trees, really struggle to translocate the waters and nutrients within them. There could have been, like, I don't know the history, but was there sidewalks put in recently in the last 10, 20 years? No.
So I should point out, I only know Toronto Tree now for 12 years.
Okay.
So I don't know what happened
There
before
could be
that.
some history there.
Okay.
But as again, the urban trees have a lot of challenges. Not that you'd ever do this, but people tend to bang their lawnmowers along them, line trim on the bottom of them, and all of the most vital tissues, the xylem and phloem, are just inside the bark. And it's fatal to do like line trimming around trees and lawn mowing. And there's a thing, you didn't do that out there, but called volcano mulching, where people put a mulch in a volcano form up against a tree. And all these things challenge trees and they weaken them. And it kind of like humans, when we get weak, we're susceptible to diseases. Well, with trees, it's diseases, pests, which are all very opportunistic, and will move in and weaken them. But it's even more prevalent when they are in their senior years, just like us. So that tree is definitely a senior tree.
So when you look at the tree, what's your best guess? Are we talking? So your best guess is that's a 45-year-old tree? What do you think?
Yeah, I think around 45. Yep, 40.
Just a kid. Just a kid.
Well, no, it's 60 it's going to be firewood.
See, I didn't know this. So can I tell you right now? You've already blown my mind. To me, trees last hundreds of years.
Some trees,
but not these crabapple trees.
Well, and again, city trees are very challenged. Urban trees, that typically they live maybe like 50 years, an urban tree.
Interesting.
It's just all of the challenges, like the soil, the compaction, the heat islands of the road and the sidewalk that are beside them. So
I have another question. I'm going to have a lot of questions for you, Professor, but there was a period of time when a woodpecker was going hardcore on Toronto Tree. Would that have, I'm just saying, I noticed some degradation in the quality of life Toronto Tree was experiencing after this period of time when this woodpecker decided to do its thing.
Looking for hors d'oeuvres, probably.
Yeah.
Little bugs and...
but I can show you the hole later. Like, there's literally this, and I was like, oh no, I didn't know what to do. Like, I don't want to mess with a woodpecker in nature, but I'm like, this woodpecker is killing Toronto Tree.
Right, yeah. And no, he's just trying to... you profit off of the tree's problems. So the tree probably had some insects on it, and the woodpecker comes in, and again, the tree's getting bullied, right, by disease, pests. Yep.
Right.
So yeah, they're just, once they're kind of over their peak, it stopped fruiting, it stopped flowering, and now,
it still does that flower thing. Like I will be calling Brad Jones at Ridley Funeral Home when the flowering stops. I'm going to feel that'll be a bad sign. I know. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. I do have a measuring tape for you, Professor.
Which is awesome, because we could do
from Ridley Funeral Home.
Before we go, we'll do the diameter of the trunk, diameter of breast height.
I was told size doesn't matter. Does size matter, Professor?
Not really, no.
Okay, thank God. I was told that multiple times.
Yeah, metric or imperial, right?
I only speak metric on this program. Metric, great band. And
yes, Emily Hayes.
Yes, and Emily's sister is an FOTM like you, Avery Haynes.
Sure, Avery. Yeah. I met Emily way back on Toronto Island because Metric did at least 2 or 3 performances on the island, Virgin Music Festival, and yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, and they went to Etobicoke School of the Arts, which is not very far from where Toronto Tree lives.
Wow, another connection.
Yeah, Amy Milan was dear friends with her, and Amy Milan went on to be in Stars.
Wow, Stars, another great Toronto band.
Great Toronto band. Yeah.
Can we just circle back to Ridley? Where would Ridley be without pine boxes that come from trees?
Right.
See, another connection.
And now that you've mentioned the pine boxes that come from tree, I need to tell you that Ridley Funeral Home only sells Canadian caskets. Most funeral homes in the city, they're selling American caskets. Only Canadian caskets at Ridley Funeral Home.
Fine Canadian lumber.
Yeah, geez. I'm glad you're here, Professor. Yep. Okay, so before we move on to trees in general, I need, because, my Toronto Tree is like my 5th child, okay? I care very much for. How much time? Give it to me straight, doctor. I can take it.
Well, I was pleased to see they're doing work on your road out there, and they've done like proper fencing for root zone protection.
Yes, sir.
And that's by the City of Toronto Urban Forestry Bylaw and Protection Crew. So they would have had to get a permit, and they come out and fence them off. So that was really good to see. But there are things that you could do to expand the life of the tree.
Well, tell me.
Something like mulching. You could strip back some of the turf and put in mulch, like a wood mulch. And what that does is it replicates the forest floor, basically as opposed to turf, which is kind of greedy because that's going to be taking water and nutrients. But if you peel back that turf and replace it with a thin 1 to 2 inch layer of mulch, it may add more aeration, allow for a better exchange of gas and air and water, and maybe extend the life of the tree.
Well, I'll do what it takes, Professor.
Okay. No, that's great.
And is there any way to reverse the 2 big things I noticed lately, which is the fruit? Like, I feel like it's the fact that it stopped dropping fruit. That's a bad sign. That's like an elderly tree, late stage of its life. It's just that I'm done with this fruit nonsense.
You just can't turn back the clock on that one.
Can't turn that one back. Oh my goodness, you're breaking my heart. But what about the dropping brown leaves in the? Why am I the only guy on the street raking his brown leaves in the summer?
I don't know how to say this, but it's kind of like the gray hair. You can't turn it back, Mike. It's just it's aging. It's a process, and it just has to cycle on, march on. So
what happens when does a tree just eventually die, or does this, because the city owns this tree, right?
Yes,
it's on the boulevard. So will the city at some point say we're going to plant a new tree?
They would assess it and look. Number one, they look for hazards like dead branches over the sidewalk or the road. So that's always like the guiding principle is hazards. And yeah, there's probably a program that they rotate through on replanting, but that's a ways off yet. But I'm sure you can do some cultural practices to extend the life of that tree.
Okay, that's a good tip on the mulching. Now, I feel like I'm hijacking the Toronto tree analysis from you. Back to you, but is there anything else I should know? So, is this type of tree, this is a very common tree in Toronto?
Right. I know in Etobicoke back, and I believe it was 1967, they had some sort of program where they planted lots of crabapple trees.
Oh, like a centennial
Yes,
thing.
like a project, yep. And it went across. And the trouble with that is that it's a monoculture. And when you plant too much of one thing, Guildwood Park, the east end of Toronto, Guildwood.
My buddy Cam Gordon, FO Team Hall of Famer, he got married near there, I guess. Is that near Guild Inn?
Guild Inn.
Yeah.
In that whole neighborhood, they planted white ash trees. And then the emerald ash borer came along, and they had to clear cut that whole area. I don't know, like 4 miles by 4 miles, whatever it was.
I only speak metric, remember.
4 6 point. Yes. Anyway, they had to clear cut that whole neighborhood because it had the emerald ash borer, and as opposed to if they did like every 5th tree.
Diversity is our strength.
Not only with trees, but with people.
Right.
We know that.
Okay, so we did a lot. Etobicoke back in just before my time, 1967, did a lot of these. Sorry, what's it called again? Crab apple.
Yeah. Flowering crabs. Yeah.
But those aren't apples. Like they look like cherries.
They're fruits. They're fruits.
Okay,
and
right.
There's over 7,000 varieties of apple trees. Like a couple of weeks ago, I was at the Johnny Appleseed Museum in Urbana, Ohio. for a big apple blossom festival. And I always thought that Johnny Appleseed was a cartoon character, like a fictional, but it was a real person, John Chapman, that went across America planting apple seeds. And he didn't do cuttings because he thought that would bring harm to the tree. So he had one variety of apple that he planted seeds and cared for them and started orchards. And he was big into cider. And that was one of the main drivers of his program of planting apple seeds was cider.
I'm going to recommend a song if you don't know it already.
Okay.
But Joe Strummer from The Clash.
Right.
He had a band post-Clash called Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros. They have a song called Johnny Appleseed. Love this song. In fact, shout out to Garrett Joyce. Me and him share an affinity for a very short-lived HBO show that used the Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros, Johnny Appleseed, as its theme song. Anyways, I love the song, Johnny Appleseed, by Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros.
That's amazing.
That's free. Professor, that tip is free.
Okay. I'm going to have to follow up on that and give it a good listen. I love tree songs.
So I find it interesting, though, because having lived in this neighborhood for a while, that there are so many of these crabapple trees because they're annoying, Professor. Mine stopped dropping the fruit, but prior to that, sad demise there, it really is a lot of rotting fruit on sidewalks for weeks in the fall.
And that will bring wasps and aphids and
who had the bright idea that we'll go hard on this most annoying of the trees?
Yeah, especially on a street situation. Like in a park, it's kind of different, but when you're dropping
sidewalks
apples,
there.
You're making jam.
Have we learned from our mistakes is what I'm wondering. You're a certified arborist.
Let's hope. Yeah, we get better at this. Where we get move the ball down the field, as we say, and best practices. So
I'm going to ask you about the benefits of urban trees, and I'm going to listen closely. But first, I have a question about the heat, okay? So, and this may tie into the answer to that question, but we're having a couple of day heat wave here. This is like day 2 of one of those feels like 45 deals, okay?
It's a baker.
Although I will just shout out the lake, okay? Because I did a ride yesterday and today by the lake, and I never felt too hot. I had a cool breeze on me the whole time. The lake, and you know this from the Toronto Island, it's a game changer. Get to the lake if you can. I know not everybody can. But do our trees suffer when there's a long period of, feels like 45? Can you bake a tree? Can it be too hot for a tree?
Absolutely. Trees are almost, if you think about a wick, trees transpire water. They pull it from the ground and they transpire through the surface of the leaf. And one of the things I tell the kids is in the summer, if you take a clear plastic bag and you put it over the end of a branch, within 24 hours, there'll be moisture inside. And that's the tree transpiring the water. Big trees can do thousands of liters of water in a season. See, I did liters there for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, trees are always transpiring water. So when it comes in short supply, they struggle. They really struggle. So that's, this morning my message was to the kids to get out and water young trees. If they see newly planted trees in their park, take a 5-gallon pail, give it a dump.
I gotta say, I never ever watered Toronto tree. I just let nature take its course on that.
That might be helpful because it's competing with turf. It's pretty harsh out there. You got the heat off the road, so you could make it a better life, a more comfortable life for that tree.
I feel like I've been underserving my Toronto tree. Okay, I'm learning a lot here.
You can do better, Mike. Let
me shout out the partners here before we go into all these benefits and why urban trees are important and all that exciting stuff. And then I have more questions about you. It sounds like you're speaking to students. How can we're at the end of the school year, but for next year maybe, how can schools book the professor? Right. And if you want the professor to come talk, I will say when people see the photo of the professor and I by Toronto Tree, they're going to see the professor's got a cool look. He's got a Lego bow tie. Professor's got crazy hair. I usually have crazy hair, but Andy the barber brought it down. Did you see photos of me with my typical crazy hair?
Yeah.
What's your preference?
You got the happy medium here because you got some crazy up top.
You think it's crazy? I'm actually feeling a little naked up here.
No, maybe, up top you're fine.
I've lost my power.
Yeah, you're tight on the sides.
Yeah.
Down to the wood, as they say. And looking
absolutely
good. Looking good.
Okay, because I was at an event, I was invited to somebody's house where I was hanging with some people, And the owner of the home told me that I look so much better fresh from a haircut like this. I felt at the end of that chat like maybe I look like crap most of the time. Like he was telling me I'm TV ready. He was going on and on. And I'm like, oh, because I'll tell you the truth. I felt Andy went too short and I was disappointed. I had lost like some of my Samson and Delilah, like some of my superpower.
Do you find that the bike helmet is a little loose now?
You know what?
You got to strap it in.
No joke. I had to adjust it significantly because
Right.
I had so much thick hair and then it got brought down. It changed like
Crank,
three
crank.
sizes.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. That exactly happened. Okay, so let's be right. Let's all do this properly. Let's subscribe to Yes, We Are Open, which is an award-winning podcast from Moneris. We love Al Grego. We love the podcast, Yes, We Are Open. And they've been doing this 3 months on, 3 months off thing, Moneris. So we're actually in the last week of the 3 months. So I'm going to miss talking about Moneris, but it's not too late for you to subscribe to season 8, where Al went to Regina, Saskatchewan, and he collected inspiring stories from small business owners. I will be seeing Al on Thursday at TMLX 19 at Great Lakes Brewery. Everybody should come out because Snow will be there to just to bring it into the orbit, and a lot of other great people like Rob Pruce, Al Grego. You don't know who's going to show up at these things. It sounds like we may have a visit from my new esteemed FOTM, Professor Elwood Pricklethorn. That's going to happen. While you're subscribing to podcasts, subscribe to Building Toronto Skyline from Nick Iones. He did a couple of great episodes about the condo market. It seems to be frozen right now. How that happened, how that can change. I found it fascinating. I also love the fact that I can go to recyclemyelectronics.ca. I can put in my postal code and find out where I can drop old electronics, old devices, old cables to get it properly recycled. So people should take note, recyclemyelectronics.ca. Question came in for you from Jay Ho, and then I'm going to give you a history book because Jay Ho is the historian here. Jay Ho says, do you have any comments, Professor, about the Maple Leaf Forever tree?
Down in Leslieville.
Yes, I'm going to say yes.
Yes. That came down. It came down a few years back, I believe. I believe they tried to restore it and give it a longer life, but I think if my memory serves me correct, a storm took it down. And I know they milled some of the wood to make legacy pieces and furniture. Other than that,
I'd like a bat made out of that wood. I feel like that would be my Wonder Boy. The planets would align with a bat made from that. But I don't know if they ever did any cuttings from it to create another legacy tree from it. I'm not sure about that. So when I have my Wonder Boy bat made out of that wood, I'm going to see if I can get maybe a roster spot on the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. They play at Christie Pitts, best baseball in the city outside the Dome. Professor, this book here will tell you the history of Toronto Maple Leafs baseball. You're going to love it, buddy.
Now, did they play on the island? Was that the same team?
It's the same. So it's the same team,
right?
But different league. So now they're in the inter-county baseball league. But that is because on the island, when they played on the island, that's where Babe Ruth famously hit his first professional home run with the Providence Grays, I believe it was
1914.
You were there.
Yeah, I have the ball. I went out to the lake. Yeah, unbelievable.
They're still looking for that ball, Professor. If you have the ball, you have to produce it for me.
It's a little soggy. It's a little
You were
soggy.
at the game. You dove into Lake Ontario. Yeah, you do know your island. So they moved. My understanding is they were on the island.
Yeah.
Then they moved to where Tip Top Tailors went. That
City
stadium,
side.
right?
Yep.
And they played there. And then they've been playing at Christie Pitts since I think like '69. I think it's on the cover of the book.
Okay.
Established 1969, does it say?
Correct.
So this iteration of the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team in the IBL, the Inter-County Baseball League, since 1969. And, best value in town. You get to the hill on Christie Pitts, you take in some amazing baseball, grab a hot dog, get yourself a Leafs lager, and enjoy the game.
Sounds good.
That's an order for you, Professor. Okay, start educating me. Educate the listeners. Why are trees important in a big city like Toronto?
Well, they are critical to our well-being every breathing moment of the day. They are, as I alluded to earlier, they're green infrastructure. They filter our air. They help mitigate sound issues. They are cooling. They you look at some of the pictures and data about streets that have trees that versus streets that don't have trees. There's also the benefit. They've done like satellite imagery and looking at. They find in major cities where there's more trees, there's less crime. Where there's more trees, there's more recreation. People are more apt to recreate, hiking and being outdoors. Where there's more trees, there's less cardiac, respiratory issues, type 2 diabetes. And it kind of goes, that kind of goes back to what made me set up as a young student in arboriculture was Texas A&M University in the late 70s did a study. And the conclusion was if you were sick in the hospital and you were able to look out the window and see greenery and trees, you would heal faster, need less medicine, get out of the hospital sooner. So this is now an active part in hospitals. A lot of hospitals have horticultural therapists that work with patients and trees and greenery and flowers as all part of your therapy to recover. But yeah, the benefits of trees just go on. And the lumber, the fruit, the protein from the nuts, and yeah.
So a couple of those points, those are all great points. I mean, now I'm thinking, why do I only have one Toronto tree? There must be room out there for a couple more. Come on, can't the city put 3 in that boulevard?
I think you can apply, Mike. You can get on the...
I got to get, you know what I mean, new ones to be planted to grow because
That's right.
It sounds like I'm going to lose Toronto tree. I honestly, this is the truth. I think if and when, because I did not realize till you dropped by, Professor, that these trees only have 50 to 60 years in them. I was blindsided by that, okay? 50 to 60 years goes by in a heartbeat, okay? I need a contingency plan, and when Toronto tree does pass away, and I don't even know what that looks like. I don't know if that means the city comes and like digs it up or something, chops it down. You'll come. You're an arborist.
Right.
You'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a funeral for a tree.
Well, this is where I'm going. I absolutely will be talking to the good people at Ridley Funeral Home. We will need to have some kind of a ceremony and have something to say goodbye properly.
Closure.
I'll have Brad Jones will be there. It'll be a whole Ridley funeral closure. Ridley Funeral Home, absolutely. The Toronto tree will be remembered forever. All of the greats have been photographed, including the professor.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of the points I find very interesting is the sound. Okay, I did an episode with a woman named Ingrid Boudet about how loud Toronto is. Like there needs to be better enforcement of bylaws for the noise. And she talks about I don't know if you noticed, but cars cars are getting louder. Like there are, they do the sudden loud noise, right? And there's no enforcement of the bylaw on that, and it wakes you up at 3 a.m. because your condo is near the garden or whatever. So we talked a lot about the sound issues. It is very interesting that I hear that trees reduce the sound. Like, are they absorbing the sound waves?
Yeah, and they buffet it. It'd almost be like designing a perfect music hall when you think of it, or a concert venue.
Yeah.
That if they have like hard, flat concrete walls, that the sound will just bounce and forever bounce back and forth. But if you change the buffeting by different size trees and different shapes of trees, it will definitely absorb and deflect, and especially out near highways, and as you say, like transit corridors, and to plant them properly with the right tree in the right place, it can really help.
Okay, and then related to that, and I did read a piece on this many years ago about the correlation between green space and temperature, and how it was so much like, even we talked about the lake effect, right? That Toronto's so massive and so big, you can't just say, it's going to feel like 45. Like, it's going to feel like 45 here it's going to feel like 40. You're going to feel like a cool 32 over here by the lake or whatever. But the parts of this city with less green space, less trees, are absolutely warmer than the parts near green space and trees. Yeah,
the little heat islands, they call them. And if we have more trees and shading, and the other thing it does too is it protects us from the UV of the sun. Like, if we have more shaded areas, especially in times like this when it's 45 out, heat of the day, it just gives us more coverage and keeps things a lot cooler.
So what can we do as a city? Like, should we be planting more trees? Like, Tell me what we should do as a city.
Absolutely, and it's happening. The City of Toronto Urban Forestry Department is very progressive, and they're, as far as I know, they follow what's called tree equity, and they're looking at certain neighborhoods that have less trees, knowing the benefits of trees, both socially and how they help us out. They're targeting neighborhoods and planting more trees, knowing that it will increase the health and the mental health and physical health of the people that live there. Another little factoid too is they've done studies on street plantings of trees, where there's streets and boulevards where they have planted boulevard style, like down the sides of the both sides of the street, and you can imagine the trees grow up and they start touching over the top of the street. People tend to drive slower, and there's less road rage on those streets that have boulevard type planting.
The live stream at live.torontomike.com is always full of real-time information from great FOTMs, who I hope to give a big hug to on Thursday at TMLX19. Did I mention TMLX19 is Thursday at 6 o'clock? Yeah. Okay, I want to make sure I mention that.
Or be a square right.
I have a note to mention it. I don't think I've mentioned it yet. But this Maple Leaf Forever tree, the one, let me see here. It's behind my condo, hit by lightning. There is a sapling planted in the park behind back in 2012. So it sounds like they grew a tree from the
cutting, maybe.
Okay, which is
possible.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. And there was apparently the Maple Leaf Forever tree had a remaining trunk that was set ablaze a few years ago, and there's not much left of it. That's pretty sad. Like we have enough trouble with nature. We don't need people messing things up here. Okay.
So it's son of or daughter of Maple Leaf Forever tree.
My goodness gracious, the tradition continues here. There were many neat things, J-Ho tells me, that were carved from the Maple Leaf Forever tree. So you were right about all that.
Yes.
And he's just asking about, so he says most trees that are planted close to asphalt, say that word for me.
Asphalt.
Yeah, I'm missing the sh in there. Okay, asphalt. I got to get that right, okay, if you're talking to kindergarten kids. But most trees that are planted close to asphalt get fried, he says.
Yeah, again, the heat island, the black top or the color of the asphalt will attract the heat, and it just changes the temperature in that little microclimate. So again, if you can do that, mulching would help underneath the tree that's closer to the asphalt. That would help mitigate it, and as well as a good watering program in the summer.
I mentioned I'd read many years ago about the value of green space and trees with regards to the temperature in the city. And it was drawing a correlation between household income and the number of trees. And essentially, the lower the household income, the fewer trees and green space,
Correct.
And therefore the warmer temperatures.
Right, and that's plays into the goals of tree equity, is trying to go into some of these neighborhoods and plant them up. And again, to help lifestyle and health and just make it more enjoyable to live amongst the trees.
Yeah, because now that I think about it, the lower income neighborhoods do seem to have more concrete.
Pretty stark, yes.
And they do feel about 10 degrees warmer.
Yeah. No, when you start looking, even in Toronto, to these different neighborhoods, they are under-treed.
Under-treed here. Okay, so you mentioned you heard the Josh Matlow episode. I'm making some inroads here slowly, but there are 25 counselors, and I think 4 have been over or whatever. So I have some work to do here. But slowly but surely, I'm getting the right ears. So we need to plant more trees, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Green infrastructure. This morning I was at the school there, and my comment was about the CO2 that CO2 is tree food. We are creating CO2 through burning fossil fuels and our factories and all the industry. Trees can't keep up. So
we need more.
No, we need more, because the same thing is we're stripping forests. So there less CO2 being absorbed into the wood of the tree. And we just need more trees in the city to help us.
So periodically the city has an ice storm.
Right.
And I remember recently we had some big ice storm where I would take a bike ride and I would see so many fallen trees. So do we replace every tree that dies from a natural disaster like that?
I don't think they can possibly do that. Probably not they don't have enough resources. So it's almost like, 10 steps forward, then 11 steps back in some cases.
Okay, Professor, you're under the, I'm not going to blame you, but I'm glad you're educating people because I think, the more you know when it comes to the value of our urban trees here. You mentioned you talked to classes. So how far have you traveled to speak to, teachers, parents, and children about the value of urban trees?
The furthest was to the University of Côte d'Azur in Nice, France.
That's far.
That's far. And I've done quite a bit in the U.S. And beginning of May, I was in Calgary. This summer, I'm going to be in Michigan and then in Indianapolis.
You're going all over the place.
Yeah.
You're just not just a GTA guy.
No, trees have no boundaries, Mike. They're borderless, and the benefits are borderless. So, when I get out there and everybody has the same kind of questions, and trees and their benefits is an international language.
I think you're right. Everybody has the same question, like, how is Toronto tree doing? Like, it's like, you'll go to France, they'll be like, is Toronto tree okay?
Right, yeah.
I heard Mike talk about the poor brown leaves he's raking up in July. I'm worried about Toronto tree. Dave Thomas in LA, he's worried about Toronto tree.
And we are going to try to extend the life of Toronto tree. We're gonna
do what
try
we
some
can.
things. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I can't say goodbye. I just got here 12 years ago. Okay, goodness gracious. I'm in my mind. I'm still, even though you might tell me it's unrelated, I'm still blaming that damn woodpecker. Woodpeckers are. I like birds, but I don't. What are you supposed to do? What am I supposed to do when I see a woodpecker going hard on the daily like it's their job on my beloved Toronto tree? Like, what am I supposed to? Put some vinegar on the tree so it goes to a different tree.
Cayenne pepper or something.
I just thought of that now. That might not have been a bad idea.
Okay. You know what? And I'm in beautiful Richmond Hill, and we have a woodpecker that sits outside our window and pecks away on our.
I think that was my guy. I think that's my guy.
Yep.
I think he came from
and
Etobicoke
apparently
to Richmond Hill.
I talked to some woodpecker specialists, and they do this thing called drumming, where it's the male and it creates a sound for the female. But maybe he's, looking for some action out there.
I think you're 100% right. We had a horny woodpecker messing with Toronto tree. Now I'm really mad. Okay. So if somebody wants you to speak to their camp,
right,
or their school, I know school is out on Friday, but for next year, whatever. Like, if somebody wants to get Professor Pricklethorn to do your thing, I saw all the props in your car. I mentioned and people can see the photo. I mentioned the bow tie and the hair. Like, there's a whole Professor Pricklethorn persona that really can reach kids and then give them this good info. How do you book Professor?
I am to what Gallagher was to watermelons. I am that guy for trees. Okay, well, not with this.
So don't use that reference of the kindergarten kids.
No, because
they
it's
don't
a
know
mallet.
who you're talking about. Noel Gallagher. Okay.
Yeah. So to get a hold of me, it's info@pricklethorn.com, or you can check out my website at www.pricklethorn.com.
Professor, what are your jams? Like, when you want to listen to some music, what are you listening to?
Oh boy.
What genre?
Elvis Costello.
Oh yeah.
I probably saw him the most.
Did you see him at the Alma Combo?
79.
79? Yeah, that's the show. Okay.
I was there.
I think it was a Gary's presentation.
Yep.
Okay.
And I saw, just recently I saw him last summer open for Darrell Hall.
Right.
Budweiser. Saw him in Osheaga a couple of years ago. Massey Hall multiple times. Yeah.
Elvis Costello, married a Canadian. So good on him.
Crawl.
Absolutely. Okay. So that's sort of your scene there. That's a cool scene, actually.
Yeah.
Like, would that new wave scene extend to like the Spoons by any chance?
Yes, the Spoons. Yep.
I only say that because at TMLX19 is going to be the keyboardist for Spoons. Rob Pruce, he's going to be there.
Wow, amazing.
You've got to be there. You can meet Rob Pruce.
Yeah.
His hair's a bit shorter now too. Here. So I was thinking of tree jams. And there's actually a lot of great tree jams. Like, Bruce Coburn has If a Tree Falls in the Forest. There's a whole bunch. Do you have a favorite tree song? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, I kind of go with this band out of Nebraska. The
Screaming Trees?
No, they're like the Corn Pickles, but they have a couple of kiddie songs for
kiddie songs, right.
Stuff.
So
I don't have like a go-to tree song.
Okay, so your scene is late 70s. You got
Yeah.
a couple of years on me. My scene is like early mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is sort of would be the equivalent for me. I go hard on the 90s still, even here in 2025. There's a lot of like 90s alt rock songs that are like one hit wonders. Like these
Right.
bands pop up, they have that killer track, but they don't really have any other song that resonates decades later. But I'm going to play one such song, okay? And then we're just
Okay.
going to have a little chat about this, okay? So here is a Tree song from the 90s.
This old man I've talked about broke his own heart, poured it in the ground. Big red tree grew up and out, throws up its leaves, spins round and round. I know all this and more. So take your hat off when we're talking to me and be there when I feed the tree. This little squirrel I used to be.
Do you know this band?
I don't.
Belly. Okay, so Belly, and I'll give a little history of Belly here, but this was the big song from the alt rock band Belly. It's an American band. This song goes back to 1993, one of the great years in music history. So says I. Fight me, I'll go at it with you. This song did reach number 1 on the Billboard Modern Rock charts. Did quite well for Belly. Belly was Tanya Donnelly's band, okay? Do you know the name Tanya Donnelly?
Got a little bit squirrely there for a minute, but yeah.
Okay, so Tanya Donnelly, I guess she first found fame with her stepsister. They were in a band called Throwing Muses. And they had a couple of songs, I remember. But then she formed this band with Kim Deal from The Breeders. Sorry, The Breeders was the name of the band, but from the Pixies. So The Breeders had a huge song called Cannonball. So she went, I'm speaking of Tanya now, she went from Throwing Muses to The Breeders, and then she started her own band in 1991 called Belly, and this song is called Feed the Tree. And I think this could be like, you know, this could be the Professor's song. Professor Elwood Pricklethorn, Feed the Tree by Belly could be your jam.
I like it. I'm going to look into that, Mike.
Okay, you're going to look into that. And then maybe one day we come up with like a tree playlist and we kick out the tree
You
jams.
can do that. I'll bring my little corn pickle songs from Nebraska.
The kids songs, okay, we'll do
Yeah.
two of them. We'll do one
Yeah.
for the kids here because I got even my 9-year-old she did her like live. No, she's been singing at a coffee shop, so it's not her debut. But she did a performance at Assembly Hall on Sunday, just yesterday. Now that I think about it, and she did a cover of a Taylor Swift song, and it was well received, and she did a great job. That's my youngest. And,
Maybe she could do a Toronto Tree song.
You know what? I think she could write one. I feel like
Yeah.
she's a budding musician, so
Yeah.
maybe I'll get Rob Pruce in on that action. If we need a little reggae in there, Snow can come by and drop a
Backbeat
verse.
reggae, yeah.
Yeah, it's all going to happen here. My goodness, Professor, you're now an FOTM, friend of
Thank you.
Toronto Mike. How was this for you?
It was awesome.
Did we miss anything important? I don't want to shut you down
think
here.
So no, and I'm going to drop a name, Gary Chowan.
He cuts hair.
That's it. One of the
How do you know
legend.
Gary?
I met Gary the first time on Toronto Island, just as the city was amalgamating, and he wanted to plant a tree there, a memorial tree, and he was hitting red tape on getting it done. We connected instantly, got it done.
Can I tell you a quick Gary Chowan story?
Of course you can.
Of course, people can hear Gary
Lovely guy.
Chowan. Yeah, he's got share stories. He's all over. Great
Yep.
stories. Great
Yep.
stories. He wrote me a note the other day, and he said, and I'm trying to find the name of this gentleman, because are you a billiards fan?
Billiards? No.
Billiard. No, me
No.
neither. Like, I don't know any billiard players, but there's a guy living in Toronto who was like a world champion of billiards.
Okay.
And of course, Gary knows everybody. Maybe he cuts his hair. I don't know. But he's like, you need to talk to this guy, Cliff. And I'm going to find out Cliff's last name. I know the billiard heads will want to know Cliff's last name. What is your name, Cliff? Oh my goodness, he just signs it as Cliff. Okay, so Cliff is a Canadian who won the billiards world champ. He's apparently famous in the billiard world, and apparently he's got some great stories. And I literally this morning wrote an email to Cliff and said, how about dropping by in early July for a deep dive and to talk about all this? Because I'm fascinated to talk to like a world famous champion billiard player. And that's because of Gary Challen.
Wow. Gary knows a lot of people in Toronto. I guess those scissors and the salon. He's had great share stories. Some of the people that he's had through there.
I gotta get Gary to TMLX 19 on Thursday.
Yeah. Oh, he'd be
Do you
great.
think Cher will show up?
She might. She might get her locks done, you know?
If Cher shows up, I'm going to see if Cher will do like an Informer remix with Snow. We're going to get some music collaborations going.
Turn back time if we could.
Oh, that video.
Yeah.
It's getting hot in here right now.
Ooh,
Holy smokes.
easy.
Professor Elwood Pricklethorn, what a pleasure it was
Thrilled
to
to
talk
be
to
here.
you
Thrilled
about
to be here.
Toronto Tree, and people can find you and book you. You can educate more people about the value of urban trees. You're doing important work.
Keep on rocking in the tree world.
Oh!
Hey.
I'm going to write that down.
Okay.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,717th show. 1717. You'll never forget that number. 17. That's Wendell Clark.
Right.
Wow.
Another classic.
Oh my God. He's over there. Hi, Wendell.
There he is.
What's he doing over there?
The big C.
Go to torontomike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs. Go to Great Lakes Brewery from 6 to 9 p.m. on Thursday, June 26th. That's TMLX 19. Your first beer is on the house. Palma Pasta will feed you. I'm hoping Keith Stein from the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team will be there. I believe him and his wife Melissa are interested in attending. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. That's where you go. You know the drill. Building Toronto Skyline. Nick Iones. I hope to see him at TMLX 19. And Ridley Funeral Home. Shout out to Brad Jones and his excellent podcast, Life's Undertaking. Hopefully I don't have to see Brad anytime soon to pay my respects to Toronto Tree. Long may Toronto Tree grow.
Grow tree, grow.
Go Tree grow. See you all. I got toast on Thursday, but I believe there's an episode Wednesday. Let's see who I expect before my song runs out. Don't run out, song. Don't run out, song. Colin Cripps from Blue Rodeo. See you then.